Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Tim and Nancy Danter Crypto Couple channel. This is not the Hair Curler Chronicles, and there's no Tim. I'm solo today, so I know, but I do have my very, very, very dear friend, Debbie Peltola Salmons, with me live today, or not live. We're just recording this session, and what I thought we would do today is we would go back and have a fun little discussion of what all about cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, Ethereum, all that sort of stuff, but from a very basic level. And I think sometimes when I have the boys with me, they get all excited about the shiny new object, and we forget that there's a whole pile of people that might not understand what we're talking about. So I thought I would invite my very dear friend Debbie on, because she's actually the one that got me into crypto, and she had to explain to me what it was. And now what's so funny about this is that she's actually going to ask me some things.
Oh, exactly. It's so true. Thank you, Nance. And I love you. And I'm so glad to be here. And I know Tim's around somewhere. Let's not lie. But yeah, simple is best for me. And I just do. I think this is important because this is the new world, right? And there's all levels of education that some people know nothing. Some people know, so much. And it becomes a new language. And, yes, I was introduced to Bitcoin in 2009, clueless, and crypto. And now we have a whole new language. And so, yes, it's your turn to teach me. And all I did was in the beginning was trust, really. I trust some friends, that were financial type folks that said, you got to look into this cryptocurrency, you got to look into Bitcoin, because I think that's really all it was in the beginning, at least to my remembrance, it was just Bitcoin, and then how to purchase Bitcoin and what wallets were. So I want to pick your brain for your audience and my audience to keep it simple. So
I'd love this. I think what we should start with is how I even asked you about this, because I think that's so that was back last June. I get a message from another friend who said I should be looking into Bitcoin. And yep. I said, I did not have, here's the crazy. I didn't think I had time to look at anything outside of my 9-to-5 job. Can you imagine that? Now, not only I know. So I thought, what do? I fling it over to the person who I think knows everything about everything. Hey, Debbie, I said this to her. I said, hey, Debbie, can you check this out and let me know if I should look at this? And then I went to bed. And then she looked at it and she's calling me at like at 10 o'clock, 11. Yes.
Well, I knew you were asleep. Because I know your schedule, but I'm answering her anyway, so that you knew when you woke up, yes, go do this. Can I just start with you and in your best simplified version, let's tell people what the heck is cryptocurrency?
Okay. So it's an alternative money system is basically what it is at the simplest level. And the kingpin of the whole thing is Bitcoin. And so if you are listening to this and you think, I don't know where to start with Bitcoin. Yes. And because Bitcoin is a store of value, they're equating it similarly to gold. Instead of holding gold, you would think about holding Bitcoin for just the exact same reason that you would hold gold. I think if we could even back up just slightly, is to even talk about currency in general, and that money. Perfect. Yeah, because money is at the end of the day just a belief system. That's all it is. We believe that it has value. So the Canadian colorful money has a certain value. The American dollar has another value, and each society places a value on their own currency. But moreover, the world places a value on that country's currency based on a number of different factors. So there's the small faction country belief system. Then there's the bigger faction of the world belief system. Right now, and just so that for the viewing audience, I'm Canadian living in Canada. Debbie is American living in the U.S. And so right now, the world, what they call the world reserve currency, and everybody in the world has agreed that the American dollar is the world reserve currency. And part of the reason for that is because you have the mightiest military in the world that backs that currency. So, but that doesn't mean it's always been that way. Prior to World War II, I believe that the world reserve currency was actually the British pound. But because of the might of the military, that currency got switched, and then everything it has gotten denoted in American dollars. And
Right.
Why this is important is it explains the evolution of what's beginning to happen here. And I think if there's nothing else that happens here, if people don't invest, if they don't do that, what they need to start realizing is the world order is starting to change. And I don't like thinking about that because as a Canadian, we always feel tucked in and safe next to our friends from the South. But the truth is we got two world powers that really, really, really do not want the American dollar to be the world reserve currency. They would rather it be their currency, and that would be China and Russia. You don't have to be a political expert to see this. You just have to know that this is where it is. So where this gets exciting on some levels is when you look at Bitcoin and the possibility that it could potentially take over as the world reserve currency. What that means for all of us around the world is that it's no longer backed by a superpower. Right. So we don't have to worry about like a Russia all of a sudden trying to dominate or a China trying to dominate. There's value in examining it from that point of view. Maybe it stings a little bit being an American to think that it wouldn't be the world reserve currency. But if we look at the bigger picture, maybe it's better that it's not attached to anybody.
Oh, I mean, seriously. Okay, I didn't know you were a historian, my friend. I just learned something new about you. Good for you. But absolutely, it makes sense. And, the world is different now. And we have to wake up and open up to that vision and that possibility. And I happen to be an American, and I think it's a good idea. Having everything backed by military, right? And that's the deciding factor. It makes me a little antsy. I'm not going to lie. Even sitting right here in the US, it makes me antsy. So, and it seems like the world has gotten smaller, right? I mean, travel happens. Okay, great. We got COVID, but it's not such a vast separated world anymore. And instinctually, I sometimes think, well, this just might make it a little better and make things, easier, because really we're the human race, right? Different nationalities, different countries, but really our hopes and desires for each of us individually and our families, it's worldwide, it's global. Yeah. So, I think it's exciting. And back in 2009, I had that basic understanding, that this is, this could be a really good thing moving forward for trade and for all of that. So thank you for that, because I agree with you. No Sorry, way. I have dogs acting up.
That's okay. I will tell you, I got the Purple Book of Ideas out. I listened to Raoul Paul speak this morning on what his channel is called Real Vision. I love him. He is just so easy to understand, and he speaks in a way that makes sense to me. And one of the things he said was, do you remember when you would totally remember this. Do you remember when the US was discovered, when America was first discovered? It was the new world. It was exciting, and anything was possible in that new world. But if you were sitting over in Europe, you were probably sitting over there going, nothing going on over there. It just needs to stay the same. So what's happening is there's a faction, and you can see it in the news media, you can see it everywhere, where you've got old school thinkers, somewhat like Ray Dalio. There's a few people that just believe that no, it's going to be gold, it's going to be silver, it's going to be this, it's always got to be this way. But here's the truth of the matter: is we got a generation we got a generation that believes that crypto is the way to go, that are starting to understand, and they want to do things differently. And guess what? We should want them to do things differently.
Absolutely.
We got to start thinking about changing of the guard. And so I just liked how he said it. I'm trying to find it because I wrote it all down. He just said, do you want to be Europe and say it will never change? Because everything won't be the same. That's the truth.
Nothing stays the same, right? Nothing.
That's right. And all that's happening is it's starting to digitize, and it's starting to make the ease of doing business with each other worldwide. If you look back, we have started to become a global economy. We've been going that way for a long time. What we haven't done a good job of is the ability to transact with each other very, very quickly through a centralized exchange. That's all that's happening here differently. So
yeah, that's great. That is so great, Nance. That really breaks it down. That makes it in the simplest terms, and that's what it is. Because I can think back to, I don't want to go down the rabbit hole, but I can think of all different kinds of things, like traveling abroad when I was young. I mean, you had to get traveler's checks, right? Because converting your currency when you went to other countries, there's exchange rates, there's all of that. And, so traveler's checks were a big deal. I remember when they came out with traveler's checks, and my parents were like, oh, this is so much easier now to do that. So like you say, there's just, it's always changing. And, and it's important to stay open to those changes and to get your knowledge level up, at least to a certain point where you have a basic understanding. Basic, that, you don't have to know everything in depth, but at least the basics. And to shut it down is just not valuable to moving forward,
No, and like anything else, some people embrace change, no worries at all. There are early adopters, and then you've got others that will be years and years and years. Some people, we know there are still people who keep wads of cash.
Oh, right, in the mattress, under the mattress,
because they're scared of even the bank. Right. And they don't like the big brother aspect of it, and so on and so forth. I would just say that this is coming, and to embrace it and to start to investigate it and just get excited about it, because it is exciting. That's my number one message. The second thing I think before, and then we'll maybe pause so that I can do this in small little bits. Sure. But the second thing I think we need to cover before we end this little episode is what is actually happening with the currency as it stands today, whether it's the American dollar, the Canadian dollar, the euro, I guess it's not called the euro anymore, the yen, like any currency right now. I think what we need to talk about is, and this is a crypto term so that you can make sure that you follow along. It's called fiat currency, and fiat currency is basic currency, whether that's American, Canadian, whatever, regular currency. They refer to it as fiat. But what's happened is, because of the pandemic, it actually started much sooner than the pandemic. It started in 2008 when we had the Great Recession.
Right.
The currency, the government had to step in. This is not a political discussion. It's rather just what the political party at the time and the Federal Reserve decided to do. This was their thought process to save us from economic disaster. They decided that they were going to print some currency to try to prop up the economy. That was one decision. There was other options that could have happened there, but the decision of the day, they decided to print some money. And so what that does is, when you start printing money like that, it starts to debase your currency. That means, that's a heavy duty word, I get it. that means your purchasing power starts to erode. That's
Yep.
all it means. And we've seen it all over the world. The biggest one for me that stands out is what's happened in Venezuela. That
Right.
where that poor country, those folks, you could take a wheelbarrow full of currency in to buy a loaf of bread now. They've printed so much money that it doesn't have any value anymore.
Yep.
So that's, I say that because they're devaluing or debasing the currency, and it's been debasing about 15% every year, and that's all currencies across the board. Why Bitcoin is starting to get a lot of attention, because it's a non-sovereign currency. It's not controlled or held by any one country. So therefore, no government can fool around with it. So it allows it to be what it's meant to be. It allows it to hold its value, either go up in value, go down in value. It's just going to store the value as is, as the market dictates it to be. And that's why it's gaining so much attractiveness right now. So that is one, why you should look at it, in my opinion, because it's a safe haven against all sovereign nations. That's first and foremost. Second of all, it's protecting you as an individual from our currency being devalued. And then add in there inflation. And that inflation is a much more complicated conversation. But inflation, no matter what your Fed says, no matter what your government says, it's going up. And it's going to get to a point where, and again, this is going to get complicated, and I don't want it to get complicated, but it's going to get to a point where they're going to have to raise your interest rates. Or if they don't, it could go to a negative place on interest rates, and in which case you holding cash in a bank account will cost you money. It will just eat away. It'll evaporate for no reason than just sitting in your bank account. So if for no other reason than to get yourself in a safe position, that's why you should, at bare minimum, look at Bitcoin.
Man, there's a lot of information there, Nance. Thank you for that. And I'm going to add a real simple thing for my American friends. Not that Canadians are aware of Jim Cramer as well, Mad Money. And what you said before that, discussion of the value of money is, there are old school thinkers, right? And some come along at a different pace. Well, Jim Cramer was just not about crypto and Bitcoin at all. And when he flipped that switch and really got the understanding, right? Because that's what happens is as people do dive in and get the knowledge, and then they start hunting it down, and he's like, oh my gosh, I need to look at this. And I know we have a whole nother podcast we can talk about that Jim Cramer does. But those are important indicators for some people that are slower at adapting. Those indicators, when you start seeing some of those people that, have some integrity and some value and have given their thoughts, it's really time to take a look. And we've got that happening all over the place, and companies that are accepting Bitcoin. But that is some fodder for another conversation.
No, for sure. And so I will say to sort of end this episode, a couple of things. Number one, it's worth the time to educate yourself. And you know who told me that?
That would be
Debbie
me.
told me that back in last June. Nancy, it's worth the time to educate yourself. And what did I do? I listened to my BFF who said, Nancy, it's time to educate yourself. So what I did, just for the audience that they know, I started with YouTube University, and I just started to find on any one of our videos in the description box, you will find links to people that we watch on a regular basis. And Awesome. It was difficult at first. They might as well have been talking Chinese. I didn't know what the hell they were talking about, but there is one Anthony Pompliano video that was the best at explaining what the heck it was. I will make sure in this video that there's a link to the Anthony Pompliano video. The second thing is, just simple little things like the little Bitcoin book. I mean, this is on Amazon. I'll have Tim put a link in
Oh,
in
good.
the description below.
I
But
need it. I don't have that one yet.
it's just a simple explanation, and it's a quick, easy read. Like, it is literally big lettering. It doesn't take any time at all, but it gives you the absolute basics of what you might need to know, and just jump in and start to learn. In the next video, Debbie and I will talk about how you go about even buying Bitcoin. I think this has been enough for today to just digest this, and then but we'd love for you to leave some comments and with some questions. If you've got any questions that we would love to answer for you. And
That's fantastic. And I just want to add to that, so when I was first introduced, I didn't know, but I did the same thing, and I educated myself to a certain point, and then I kind of stepped off, and it's just been riding. And then, we had that conversation, Nance, where I said it's time to educate yourself. And I want to thank you for seriously educating yourself, because now I come to you. And it's great, but you don't need to fear. If I can tell our audiences anything, don't be afraid of it. We're not going to tell you to go out and spend $50,000 tomorrow. Just start learning. Just educate yourself so that you have basic knowledge, and things can be done on a very small scale, just to get you involved and learning. So fear not.
I love it.